The fiery embers of Mustafar had barely cooled when the galaxy shifted. Padmé Amidala, gravely wounded after confronting her husband Anakin Skywalker, now Darth Vader, was believed dead by both the Republic and the Empire. But fate had another path in store. Secretly rescued by Bail Organa and hidden on Alderaan, Padmé lived. Her survival was kept quiet, known only to a handful of trusted allies including Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda. Devastated by Anakin's fall, yet unwilling to give up on him, Padmé made a vow she would save him or die trying. For years, Padmé raised Leia in secret while Luke was hidden on Tatooine. But she didn't remain idle. With the help of the burgeoning Rebel Alliance, she gathered intelligence, tracked Vader's movements, and studied the Force under the guidance of Obi-Wan from afar. Her connection to Anakin remained strong, a flicker of hope in the Force that hadn't yet gone dark. When Leia was 10, Padmé risked everything and sent a message into the void, a coded holo-transmission intended for Vader alone. It reached him aboard the Executor. The sight of her alive sent tremors through the Dark Lord's armor. For the first time in years, the man beneath the mask felt something he thought was gone. Haunted by dreams of Padmé and plagued by the whispers of his former self, Vader began to waver. The Emperor, sensing weakness, ordered Vader to kill the woman he once loved. But this time, Anakin disobeyed. Instead, he sought her out. Their reunion happened on a deserted moon in the Outer Rim. At first their meeting was tense, Padmé confronting the monster Anakin had become, Anakin drowning in guilt. But amid the anger and sorrow, love broke through. She showed him their daughter, revealed the truth about her survival, and reminded him of who he once was, not a Sith Lord, but a Jedi. A protector, a father. The Force stirred. Anakin's mask cracked, literally and metaphorically. Palpatine, enraged by Anakin's faltering loyalty, set a trap. He lured Padmé and Leia into captivity, hoping to destroy the final threads of humanity in his apprentice. But Anakin, now awakened, turned against his master. In a climactic battle aboard the Emperor's starship, he chose love over power, light over darkness. Together, Padmé and Anakin fought side by side, a union of spirit and strength. Though gravely wounded, Anakin survived. Palpatine did not. With the Empire in chaos, Padmé emerged from hiding as a symbol of peace and resistance. Anakin, stripped of title and armor, surrendered to the Rebel Alliance, choosing to stand trial for his crimes. But Padmé, Leia, and the Jedi who remained, like Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, helped the galaxy see the man behind the shadow. Years passed, the Skywalker family began to heal. Luke, Leia, and a redeemed Anakin helped rebuild the Jedi Order, not as an institution of warriors, but as guardians of balance. Padmé, forever the voice of diplomacy and compassion, became a leader in the New Republic. Where once there was tragedy, there was now hope. The wind howled across the scorched surface of Mustafar. Fire raged beneath jagged cliffs, lava flowing like blood through open wounds in the planet's crust. Obi-Wan Kenobi stood silently aboard the ship, cradling Padmé Amidala's unconscious form. Her breathing was shallow, faint, fragile, but still alive. He had feared the worst when she collapsed after Anakin's brutal outburst, her body racked with pain and heartbreak. He thought she might slip away right there on the volcanic sands where love and hope had turned to ash. But the Force whispered otherwise. "She's alive," he murmured, eyes locked on her pale face. "She still has a chance." Yoda, waiting on Polis Massa, confirmed what Obi-Wan dared not say aloud. Padmé's will to live burned brighter than any medical prediction. It was not the machines keeping her breathing. It was something deeper, something more powerful than science, love, and a desperate need to reach Anakin. But the threat of discovery was too great. Anakin, now Darth Vader, was fully in the grip of the dark side, and if the Emperor discovered Padmé lived, he would surely use her to control Vader, or destroy her to cut his last tie to the light. Bail Organa stepped forward. "I'll take her to Alderaan," he said. "There are places to hide, safe places. No one needs to know." Obi-Wan hesitated, the weight of their decision pressing against him. "And the children?" he asked softly. Yoda stepped between them, his voice grave. "Separate they must be, hidden, safe. If Vader knows, lost they will be." Padmé stirred slightly as if hearing them, a quiet breath escaping her lips. Obi-Wan's hand tightened around hers. He looked to Bail, then nodded. "Go, keep her safe. Tell no one, not even the Alliance." That night, under the cover of darkness and silence, Padmé was spirited away to Alderaan. Medical droids worked tirelessly. Her recovery was slow, painful, but day by day she returned, not just in body, but in spirit. And when her eyes opened fully weeks later, her first word was not a cry of fear or confusion. It was a name. Anakin. Not with hatred, not with anger, but with hope. Padmé sat alone on a balcony high above Alderaan's cloud-kissed cities, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea that had long gone cold. The stars blinked overhead, scattered like secrets across the night sky. She hadn't spoken to anyone in hours. The silence suited her. But inside, her mind churned like a storm. Anakin was still out there, somewhere. No one dared say his name anymore, not Obi-Wan, not Bail, not even the Jedi who remained in hiding. To the galaxy, he was Darth Vader now, a monster wrapped in armor, feared across the stars. But Padmé couldn't forget the man beneath that mask, the boy from Tatooine, the Jedi who once looked at her like she was the only light in the galaxy. She remembered the feel of his hand trembling in hers during quiet moments, the way he had smiled when he first felt their child kick, the way he had whispered, "I'll protect you, I promise." So many promises, so many broken pieces. "You're still in there," she whispered to herself, behind the rage, behind the armor, behind the terrible things he'd done. She wasn't blind. She knew Anakin had fallen far, too far, for many to forgive. She saw the fear in the eyes of the refugees fleeing the Empire. She heard the reports of Vader's brutal campaigns, and yet, she felt it. A tether. A pull in the Force that had never fully snapped. Love didn't vanish like that, not true love. It changed, it hurt, but it endured. "Even now, he's reaching for something," she said aloud, as if the wind might carry her words to wherever he was. She turned to Bail Organa, who stood in the doorway, concern on his face. "They think he's lost," she said, "that he's gone forever. But they didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel what I felt on Mustafar. He was breaking, not gone, just broken." Bail hesitated. "And if you're wrong?" Padmé looked out at the stars once more, a fire in her eyes that hadn't been there since the Republic fell. "Then I'll be the one who walks into the darkness to find him. Because if I won't, who will?" Leia's laughter echoed through the soft halls of the Alderaanian villa. At only 10 years old, she already carried a spark that lit every room she entered. Quick-witted, bold, and fiercely curious, Padmé watched her daughter with a mixture of joy and ache. So much of Anakin lived in Leia's smile, and in the fire behind her eyes. Padmé kept their life quiet, discreet, hidden. Leia knew Bail and Breha Organa as her adoptive parents. She knew Padmé as a close family friend, a caretaker, a teacher, someone always nearby. The galaxy believed Padmé Amidala was long dead, and for the sake of Leia's safety, that lie had to hold. But Padmé was far from idle. By day, she walked the gardens of Alderaan, appearing as a scholar in exile, tending to Leia and whispering stories of distant stars and ancient justice. By night, she moved through secret tunnels beneath the palace, where messages from the rebel cells flickered in holograms and encrypted codes. She read every dispatch, analyzed troop movements, and memorized the faces of senators, soldiers, and smugglers who still dared to fight. And always she listened to the Force. Obi-Wan had taught her what he could, not like a Jedi master would, but gently, cautiously, through meditation, through awareness, enough to sense danger and hope. "She's strong in the Force," Obi-Wan had said once, watching Leia from afar. Padmé nodded. So was her father. At night, when Leia was asleep and the halls grew silent, Padmé would sit alone and reach out through the Force. Not with power, not with command, but with presence. "Anakin, can you hear me?" Sometimes she felt a flicker, a shadow across her thoughts, a hesitation in the darkness. It wasn't much, but it was something. She kept a small holoprojector hidden in her chamber. It contained one recording, the last peaceful message Anakin ever sent her before Mustafar. His voice, calm, warm, loving, was a ghost she returned to often. "I miss you, my love. I'll come back to you soon." Padmé would close her eyes and whisper, "I'm still waiting," not with sorrow, but with faith, because in the silence between heartbeats the Force still whispered of love not yet lost. The transmission was short, only 17 seconds long. Padmé stood in the dim blue light of the Rebel communications chamber, her voice steady, but her hands trembling just out of frame. The message wasn't meant for the rebellion. It wasn't for senators or soldiers or spies. It was for him. "Anakin, if any part of you can still hear me, please, listen." She paused, just for a moment, breathing in deeply. "I'm alive. Leia is safe. You are not the only one who lost everything that day. I lost you. But I never stopped believing you were still in there." Then, with a soft look in her eyes, half memory, half plea, she whispered, "You're not alone. I still believe in the good man you were. I know he's not gone." And the message ended. The slicer scrambled the signal, scattering it across abandoned trade channels and buried military codes, just enough to pass beneath the Empire's sensors. It was a gamble, a dangerous one. But somewhere, aboard the massive Executor starship, Darth Vader stood motionless in his private chamber, staring at the flickering image of the woman he thought dead. Padmé, alive. For a long time, there was silence. The droids dared not speak. The hum of the ship around him faded beneath the rush of blood in his ears. He gripped the edge of the console, gauntleted fingers tightening. "It's a trick," he growled to no one. But the voice in the recording, it was her. Not a fake, not a forgery. And the feeling that struck him like a wave, it wasn't anger. It was pain. Raw. Immediate. Real. The past began to claw its way back through the cracks in his mind. Mustafar. The screams. Her face. Her words. "You're breaking my heart." And now she was alive. He turned away from the screen, breathing heavy behind his mask, but something stirred, deep down, buried beneath years of rage and hate. A whisper. A flicker of light in the dark. "She still believes in me." And for the first time in a long time, Darth Vader didn't feel certain. He felt torn. The Emperor's voice echoed through the dark halls of the throne room, cold and sharp like a blade. Palpatine hissed, his yellow eyes glowing with cruel delight. "Your precious Padmé, hidden from you all these years." Darth Vader stood still as stone, the hum of the starship outside barely a whisper compared to the roaring inside his own head. Alive. She was alive. And Palpatine had known. The hologram flickered to life. Padmé's message replayed in full, her voice reaching into Vader's soul like a hand from another lifetime. "You're not alone. I still believe in the good man you were." The words didn't just echo, they dug in. Palpatine circled him like a vulture. "Doom is a weakness," he sneered, "a chain dragging you back to your failure. If you wish to remain strong, if you wish to fulfill your destiny, you must finish what you began." Vader's fist clenched. The metal groaned under the strain. She was not a weakness, he said, his voice low, distorted but shaking. Palpatine stopped. Then prove it, he said. Go to her, end this foolishness, kill her yourself. Something snapped inside Vader. Not with rage, but resistance. The leash Palpatine had held for years suddenly felt brittle, rusted. He remembered Padmé's face, not the broken woman on Mustafar, but the strong one in his dreams, the one who fought with words, not weapons. I won't kill her, Vader said. Palpatine's face twisted. You will obey? No. Vader turned toward the door, his cape billowing behind him. Not this time. Palpatine raised his hand, lightning coiling at his fingertips. Do not test me, Lord Vader. Vader paused, then looked back. You lied to me since the beginning, he said. You said she died because of me, but she didn't. You hid her, used her memory to control me. Palpatine snarled. You are nothing without my power. Vader stepped into the shadows. I was never yours. And with that, for the first time since donning the armor, Anakin Skywalker chose his own path. Not the path of fear or anger, but the first step back toward the light. The moon was quiet, an abandoned mining colony in the outer rim, long forgotten by maps and memory. The sky overhead shimmered with violet clouds, and wind swept across the rusted landing platforms like whispers from a time before war. Padmé stood alone beneath the cold light of the stars, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel him approaching before she saw him, an ache in the Force, deep and familiar. A presence she hadn't felt this close in years. Then he appeared. Dark armor, heavy breath, a shadow among shadows. Darth Vader. She didn't flinch. She didn't run. Anakin. The name lingered in the air like smoke. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, the helmet turned to face her. You shouldn't have come, he said. The voice was deep, hollow, mechanical, but something beneath it trembled. Padmé's eyes searched the mask, but she spoke as if it weren't there at all. I had to. You needed to see the truth. I'm not dead, and our daughter is alive. Silence stretched between them, heavy with 1,000 unspoken words. Vader turned away, the metal of his fists tightening at his sides. You don't understand what I've done, he said. You don't know what I've become. She took another step. I do, she said. I've seen the destruction, the fear. I've seen the man the galaxy thinks you are. Then her voice softened. But I've also seen the man you were. And I know. He's still in there. His breath caught, just for a second. I killed that man, he whispered. Padmé shook her head. No, you buried him. But he's not gone. She reached forward, placing a hand gently on the chest plate of his armor. You were lost, not evil. You were scared, hurt, but you can still come back. Something broke in the air between them. His breath grew uneven. His hand rose halfway, then lowered again, unsure. Finally, he whispered the first real word he'd spoken in years, without the armor's filter. Padmé. And just for a moment, beneath all the metal and darkness, a flicker of Anakin Skywalker returned. The mask lay on the ground, scorched, scratched, still hissing faintly with the breath it could no longer carry. Anakin knelt in the dust beside it, shoulders trembling, the wind brushing against his bare face like it hadn't in years. His eyes, once golden with rage, were dark now, haunted. Human? He looked up at Padmé, as if seeing her for the very first time. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She only watched him with tears filling her eyes and her hands pressed gently to her heart. Everything I did, he said, his voice raw and shaking. I thought it was for you, for us, but I was wrong. Padmé walked forward, kneeling beside him, her voice soft and steady. You were hurting, Anakin. You were tricked, but you don't have to carry that pain alone anymore. He shook his head, eyes closing. I don't deserve forgiveness, not after what I've done. Padmé reached out and took his hand. The one not made of metal. The one still warm. Still real. "It's not about deserving," she whispered. "It's about choosing who you want to be now. The galaxy is falling apart and it needs the Jedi you were. The man I loved, the father Leia, deserves to know." Anakin looked down at their joined hands, his breath catching. The years of hate, of control, of obedience to the Emperor, all of it cracked under the weight of her forgiveness. Not because she excused what he had done, but because she still saw the good that could be saved. "I don't know if I can go back," he said. Padmé smiled gently. "Then don't go back. Go forward. With me." He looked into her eyes, truly looked, and for the first time since Mustafar, his heart stirred, not with fire, but with hope. "I'm scared," he admitted. "So am I," she said, tightening her grip. "But we're still alive. That means we still have a choice." In the silence that followed, the stars above them shimmered brighter. And Anakin Skywalker, no longer Vader, nodded slowly. He chose. Not vengeance. Not power. But redemption. The halls of the Imperial stronghold echoed with alarms, sharp, shrieking, urgent. Blaster fire rang through the corridors. Stormtroopers scrambled into defensive lines, their voices crackling through broken comms. Smoke poured from shattered control panels, and warning lights flashed red in every corner. But in the heart of the chaos, two figures moved like shadows through fire. Anakin and Padmé. He no longer wore the mask, no longer hid behind the weight of the machine. The armor was gone, left behind in pieces like a shed skin. In its place, simple robes, lighter, freeing, but in his eyes burned something deeper than power. Conviction. Padmé kept close, her blaster drawn but calm. She didn't flinch. She didn't hesitate. The two of them moved with quiet coordination, each step forward one they had dreamed of for years. Anakin had returned and he had brought a storm with him. They weren't alone. Saboteurs from within the rebellion had slipped inside during a diversion, rigging key systems for collapse. It had been coordinated, clean, precise, but none of it could have worked without Anakin's help. His codes, his clearance, his deep knowledge of the Empire's beating heart. The target, the main communications array. If they could destroy it, the Emperor's grip on dozens of outer systems would shatter overnight. Worlds would rise. The rebellion would grow. And Palpatine's web would finally begin to tear. But time was short. Padmé pressed against a doorway as Anakin sliced into the last control panel. "They're closing in," she said, breathless but focused. Anakin glanced back, fingers dancing over the interface. "Let them." With a final click, the system flashed green. "It's done." A low rumble followed, distant but rising. The station's core had begun to fail. They had minutes, maybe less, before the entire sector of the base went down. Padmé grabbed his hand. "Then let's go." As they ran, dodging flames and falling debris, the future cracked wide open around them. Not the future promised by Palpatine, not the one ruled by fear, but one fought for, one chosen. Side by side. This time, they weren't fleeing war. They were running toward freedom. The forest moon of Endor was quiet beneath a blanket of stars. Smoke still curled from shattered Imperial walkers, and the air was thick with the scent of fire and victory. The battle was over. The shield generator had been destroyed, the Death Star gone, the Empire fractured. Across the galaxy, celebrations broke out like sparks catching flame. But not everyone was cheering. Padmé stood near the edge of the clearing, watching the flames of a funeral pyre rise into the night sky. Her arms were folded tightly around herself, her eyes never leaving the blaze. The crackle of burning wood was the only sound between the trees. Behind her, Luke Skywalker stepped quietly out of the shadows. He didn't speak at first. He just stood beside her, letting the silence settle. "He saved me," Padmé said softly, voice barely above a whisper. "Even after everything, he saved all of us." Luke nodded slowly. "He came back to the light." She looked at him, tears shining in her eyes. I always believed he would, even when no one else did. Luke offered a faint smile. I see where I get it from. Padmé's lips trembled, but she returned the smile. The flames danced higher, crackling and golden. The silhouette of a man, of a fallen Jedi, vanished into light. Not Darth Vader, but Anakin Skywalker. A hero reclaimed. Padmé took a breath, long and slow. The grief was there, but so was peace. Anakin had been lost, and now, at last, he was free. Leia approached from the camp behind them, her presence warm and steady. She didn't say much, just reached out and took her mother's hand. Together they stood in the glow of the fire, the sky above them scattered with stars and silent promises. Luke placed something at Padmé's feet before stepping back. Anakin's lightsaber, a symbol of what had been broken and what had been restored. And as the flames faded into embers and the night grew quiet again, Padmé closed her eyes and whispered to the stars, I knew you'd come back. And in the stillness, the Force whispered back, he never truly left. Years passed. The galaxy slowly began to heal, though scars from the war lingered on every world. The Empire was gone, its shadow lifted, but the work of rebuilding was only just beginning. Padmé Amidala did not return to politics, not in the way she once had. She spent her days on Naboo, among the lakes and green hills she had once known as a girl. But she was no longer the queen, nor the senator. She was something else now, something quieter, stronger. She was a mother. Leia, always curious and sharp, grew into a natural leader. She studied the old speeches of the Republic, practiced diplomacy at her mother's side, and learned how to stand with grace even in the face of chaos. But there was fire in her too. Anakin's fire, the spark of defiance when justice was threatened. Luke, ever thoughtful, chose a different path. The Force called to him, gentle but insistent. With guidance from Obi-Wan and Yoda's teachings, he began the long task of rebuilding the Jedi Order, not as it was, but as it could be, free from fear, rooted in balance. Sometimes, late in the evening, the family would gather beneath the stars outside their home. No titles, no lightsabers, just voices and laughter and the hum of quiet peace. One night, as Leia traced constellations with her finger, she asked, Do you think he's watching us? Padmé looked up at the sky, her eyes soft. He declared, she said, He always will be. Luke nodded, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. The Force is with him, and with us. They fell into a quiet moment together, wrapped in the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. Padmé reached out and took her children's hands. For the first time in a long time, her heart didn't ache. It be strong. Anakin had fallen, full for his ship, but he had risen again, not for power, not for redemption, but for love. And now, in the laughter of their children, in the peace of a starlit home, the Skywalker name no longer carried the weight of fear. It carried the light of hope.